Well, it's been like 3 weeks since I did anything on this thing, and if I want to drive it this spring and or summer, that type of progress or lack thereof is not acceptable. So today we are working on this again. So naturally, I didn't get anything done yesterday, and basically where we're at is I'm going to cut off the shock hoops, gonna go back to a single shock, clean up the frame, plate the frame, because on at least one side, the shock hoop as it currently is gonna interfere with the intercooler pipe, and I'd rather just make a match. And one thing that I always kind of regretted was not cleaning up the frame better. So I'm gonna put the front axle on stands, pull the wheels off, and get to work cutting the tubes off and cleaning up the frame. All right, we're an hour and a half in, and this is where we've gotten. This sucks. I remember now why I didn't do this when we initially did the axle swap, but we're getting somewhere. Originally, I was gonna run the WFO frame plates. The shipping was almost as much as the plates themselves, so I said, fuck that, I'm just gonna do it myself. So once we're done getting this prepped up, we'll draw up some cardboard, cut out some plate, and figure out exactly how we're gonna plate this. All right, well, after like probably 2.5 hours, we're here. And we got this cardboard template. It's gonna go something like that. So now we're gonna go cut it out and hopefully get it welded in. There's my plate. Go in there, something like that. Now we'll weld it. All right, got her welded in. Fits pretty good. These corners were kind of tough, and then there's like pockets in the frame here and here where the control arm mounts originally were. You can see the remnants of them. So I had to fill there quite a bit, but fits good and it looks good. So we got this side pretty much ready to go to weld the plate in. It seemed to go a little bit quicker. I think part of that is due to the fact that on the other side, I thought everything had to be ground, whereas actually a fair amount of it can just be cut and chiseled, which saved quite a bit of time. So I got it all prepped. One kind of disappointing thing is I did find this rot right here. It does correspond with where the rear shock hoop connecting point was. So my best guess is that water got in there and it just sat there and ate the frame for the last 3 years. So that kind of sucks. But probably what I'm gonna do is, haven't decided yet if I'm gonna patch over it or if I'm gonna cut it out. I'd kind of prefer to cut it, to be honest, but haven't made that decision yet. So anyway, I think the next step is just gonna be to get the frame plate welded in. I'm hoping that the shock mounts will be here today and then I can get to work setting them. I did forget to measure the distance from the axle to the frame, but we can figure that out pretty easily, I think. So I'm gonna get the frame plate welded in and see where we go from there. Huh. And this is why you don't buy a truck from New England. So this is a factory boxed in frame from about there up. And by design, there's a gap. And as you can see over the years, stuff has gotten in there. And I'm sure that putting the shock mount there didn't help, but realistically, except from filling this thing with oil, it was bound to happen. And quite frankly, for 260,000 miles and being a career New England truck, I guess it's really not that awful. So now we're gonna cut our piece to fit, weld her up. All right, well that was a pain in the dick. We did the first patch, like here. And then as I was welding it, kept blowing out this side. So took my pry bar, kept finding rot, so I cut that out. So basically from like here to about here is a patch. It is what it is. It's an old truck. So anyway, gonna get this side cleaned up and see what time the shock hoops are supposed to be here. All right, so FedEx came. We got our Dorman OBS Ford shock towers. They're huge. So what I'm gonna do is grab one of the old shocks and find what ride height is on it. Basically just find the middle point of full compression and full travel. And then based off that measurement, I'll probably wind up cutting a couple inches off of these on the base and then stick them on there. So these are nice. These are like 50 or 60 bucks for the pair. I got them on Amazon, but you can get them kind of wherever you want. And they're heavy, should be nice, easy to weld to, so happy with that. So basically, and this is really, I should have remembered to measure the old hoops, but full extension is 19, full collapse is 12 1/4. So divide the difference of that, it's 3 3/8. You add them together, it's 15 5/8 would be the distance on center from the axle to the frame, which would put the shock exactly at half travel. This is what I come up with. So for reference, here's the unmolested one. You can see how it kicks out at the bottom, probably like a 10-degree angle, 15 degrees or something like that. So originally what I did is I just kind of tacked this in place straight flush with the frame, square with this piece anyway. And it was just too much of an inward leaning angle for the shock. And the shock, truthfully, probably would have still functioned because like a lifted square body, the shock is at some pretty crazy angles, but it wasn't anything that I was interested in, mostly for aesthetic reasons. So basically what I did is I had the drop of the bottom here, and that's what this piece is. So it corrects the angle back to basically what this would have been. So just tacked it on the side, and then I cut out a piece of like 1/8 inch flat stock for the top. So basically what this is gonna do is it's gonna give me quite a bit of up travel in the shock, only about 2 inches of down travel, which for one thing, these are $40 shocks, so I kind of don't care if they blow out, and I can always figure out a different shock if that's what it comes down to. But I figure, you know, I don't really see a reason why this truck would ever have the need for a bunch of down travel anyway. So the way I have this tacked in right now, the only thing that's welded to the frame is the actual main tower itself. So now what I'm gonna do is pull it off and weld this backside because it's going to be difficult to get to in the truck, and then I'll put it back in and weld it out. There it is, all welded in. So gotta think when the truck gets taken off the jacks, that'll return a little bit closer to vertical, but still retaining some negative angle to it. I'm glad that's over. That was way more difficult than it needed to be, getting it to match the other side. And it's pretty fucking dead nuts as far as I can tell. I measured off the hole in the frame, off the hole in the frame, and then using my phone, found the angle this way, the angle this way, and basically matched it as best as possible. So it's in, it's welded on all sides, and now just gotta wire wheel everything and throw a coat of paint on it, and then we can bolt in the shocks, put the tires and wheels back on, and get this thing back on its own weight. Got a little paint on it, a couple more coats, throw the shocks back in, get this thing down on its own weight. We're back on our own weight. The shock angle is not ideal. I think the way to fix that would be to reposition the lower tabs, because obviously we're pretty committed up top, but it's about the same side to side. Got some paint on it. It'll look nice to look in the fender and see that instead of some poorly welded hoops with paint missing and a bunch of rust and all that kind of stuff. So pretty happy with it. Not too bad. And there we go. So that'll do it for this one, and we'll figure out what's coming next.